Have you ever wondered why some people seem to navigate life's challenges with remarkable ease, while others constantly struggle? What if I told you that the secret to being truly unbeatable in life isn't about physical strength, wealth, or even intelligence, but rather about something we all have access to, understanding human behavior? Think about it for a moment. When was the last time you felt completely blindsided by someone's actions or words? That sinking feeling when a relationship unexpectedly falls apart, when a colleague undermines your work, or when someone you trusted betrays that trust. These moments leave us feeling defeated, vulnerable, and powerless. But here's the thing. You cannot be truly defeated if you understand human behavior. This isn't just motivational talk, it's a practical truth that can transform how you navigate every relationship and interaction in your life. Many of us struggle daily, not because the world is against us, but because we're operating under misunderstandings and illusions about how people think and why they act the way they do. We take things personally that aren't personal at all. We misinterpret signals and attach meanings to actions that were never intended. Has this ever happened to you? You spend days worried about something someone said, only to later realize you completely misunderstood their intention. Or perhaps you've ended friendships over perceived slights that were simply miscommunications. The truth is, most interpersonal conflicts stem not from malice, but from misunderstanding. When we lack insight into human behavior, both others and our own, we become vulnerable to unnecessary pain and defeat. Understanding behavior patterns gives you a kind of superpower. It allows you to predict responses, diffuse tensions before they escalate, and build bridges where others see only walls. It helps you recognize when someone's actions reflect their own insecurities rather than your worth. It enables you to distinguish between genuine threats and harmless projections. Stay with me until the end of this journey, because what you're about to discover might fundamentally change how you interact with every person in your life. The insights I'll share aren't complex psychological theories. They're practical observations about why we do what we do, why we react the way we react, and how understanding these patterns can make you practically invincible in social situations. Imagine moving through life with the ability to read situations clearly, respond effectively, and remain unshaken by the unpredictable nature of human interaction. This isn't about manipulating others. It's about seeing clearly through the fog of misunderstanding that causes so much unnecessary suffering. When you truly grasp why people behave the way they do, including yourself, you gain a level of emotional freedom that few ever experience. You begin to see that many of the attacks you perceived were never aimed at you at all. Hit subscribe if you're done with empty advice and ready for actionable integrity strategies that create real change. The true power of Machiavellian thinking isn't found in manipulation or deceit. It's in the clarity it provides. When you understand human nature as it truly is, not as you wish it to be, you gain an unshakable confidence in your decisions. This mental framework creates a shield against disappointment because you've anticipated both the best and worst scenarios. The Prince wasn't written as a manual for tyrants. It was Machiavelli's attempt to reveal the underlying mechanics of power and relationship dynamics that affect us all. Think about the last time someone completely blindsided you. Perhaps a colleague took credit for your work, or a friend betrayed your trust. That sting of surprise often hurts more than the act itself. Machiavelli's teachings prepare you for these moments by removing the shock factor, allowing you to respond with composure rather than emotional reaction. This isn't cynicism, it's strategic awareness. The transformation happens when you stop being surprised by human nature. You'll find yourself making better decisions, forming stronger alliances, and experiencing less emotional turbulence when situations don't go as planned. This heightened awareness becomes particularly valuable during life's pivotal moments: career changes, relationship decisions, or investment opportunities. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the hidden cost of predictability in your own behavior. When your actions become entirely predictable, you create a vulnerability that others can exploit, often unconsciously. Consider how easily we fall into comfortable patterns, taking the same route to work, maintaining the same daily schedule, responding to challenges in consistent ways. While routine creates efficiency, it also creates blind spots. Those who succeed in business, relationships, and personal growth understand the delicate balance between consistency and strategic unpredictability. Take Steve Jobs, who maintained core values while regularly surprising competitors with unexpected innovations. Or consider how the most respected negotiators keep their counterparts slightly off balance, never revealing their full position prematurely. The revelation here isn't that you should become erratic or unreliable. Quite the opposite. The wisdom lies in knowing when predictability serves you and when it limits your potential. By occasionally breaking your patterns in thoughtful ways, you create space for new opportunities and strengthen your position in competitive environments. This journey towards strategic thinking doesn't happen overnight. It requires self-awareness and the courage to occasionally step outside your comfort zone. The hidden truth is that many of life's greatest rewards come from moments when you've broken free from expected behaviors and embraced calculated risk. When you study history's most influential figures, from Catherine the Great to Warren Buffett, you'll notice they all maintained a certain inscrutability. They revealed enough to build trust, but kept enough in reserve to maintain leverage in critical situations. This balanced approach to transparency is something we can all incorporate into our daily interactions. If you're nodding along thinking, "This resonates with my experiences," type strategic awareness in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already been applying these principles, perhaps without labeling them as Machiavellian. The courage to embrace uncertainty becomes your greatest advantage in a world obsessed with certainty. Everyone wants guarantees, but the truth is that transformation always happens in that uncomfortable space where you don't have all the answers. Think about it. Has any significant growth in your life occurred when you were completely comfortable? Probably not. I remember talking with a successful entrepreneur who told me something profound. The day I stopped needing to know exactly how things would turn out was the day my business finally took off. This mindset shift isn't just about business. It applies to everything from relationships to personal development. Uncertainty isn't your enemy. It's the canvas where possibilities are painted. Society has created this bizarre framework where predictability is rewarded, while exploration is seen as risky. From early education, we're taught that there's a correct path: good grades, college, stable job, retirement. This linear journey might work for some, but it creates an invisible ceiling that limits human potential. The hidden truth here is that this conditioning doesn't just restrict your choices, it restricts your ability to even see choices. Behind the scenes of every major innovation, you'll find someone who was willing to venture into uncharted territory. Steve Jobs didn't know exactly how the iPhone would transform society. He simply had the courage to explore what might be possible. This willingness to step into uncertainty is what separates those who create the future from those who merely live in it. What's fascinating about this journey is how it rewires your relationship with fear. When you consistently lean into uncertainty, you develop what psychologists call discomfort resilience, the ability to function effectively even when you don't have all the answers. This isn't just a professional skill. It's a life-changing revelation that affects everything from how you handle relationships to how you approach challenges. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this mindset shift actually happens on a practical level. It's one thing to intellectually understand that embracing uncertainty is valuable, but it's another thing entirely to develop it as a daily practice. The transformation begins when you start recognizing that discomfort isn't a warning sign. It's a growth indicator. If you're nodding along with this perspective on uncertainty, write in the comments, "Uncertainty is where growth happens." I'm curious how many of you have already discovered this truth in your own experiences. Awareness is where true power originates. What's fascinating about Machiavelli's teachings is that they never advocate for unnecessary harshness. Rather, they illuminate the shadows of human nature that most philosophers prefer to ignore. This realism is actually a form of profound respect for humanity. By acknowledging our capacity for both selfishness and nobility, Machiavelli offers us a complete picture of what we're working with when building anything worthwhile. Think about your own journey. Haven't your greatest revelations come when you finally faced reality as it is, not as you wished it to be? The transformation begins when we remove the rose-colored glasses and see the world with clear eyes. This clarity isn't cynicism, it's simply the necessary foundation for genuine strategy. The most successful leaders throughout history understood this fundamental truth. They didn't prevail because they were the most virtuous or the most vicious. They succeeded because they were the most aware. They recognized the terrain, understood the players, and made decisions based on what is, not what should be. I've found that in my own life, the moments when I've been most effective weren't when I was being idealistic or pessimistic, but realistic. This mindset shift changes everything. It's like finally putting on the correct prescription glasses after years of squinting through a blurry lens. Suddenly, you see the hidden patterns that were always there. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how Machiavellian principles can be ethically applied in modern contexts. The real impact of these teachings comes not from manipulating others, but from understanding the mechanisms of power and influence that are already at work around you. It's about developing a heightened awareness of social dynamics that most people navigate blindly. Consider how often people are surprised when their well-intentioned actions backfire. They're shocked when their generosity is exploited or when their transparency is used against them. This isn't because people are inherently evil. It's because these well-meaning individuals failed to account for the complex reality of human motivations and social structures. This awareness extends beyond individual interactions to understanding systems and institutions. Every organization has its official hierarchy and its unwritten rules. Every social group has its stated values and its actual practices. Learning to read these dual realities isn't cynical. It's essential for creating meaningful change from within. Subscribe to join a community of people who choose substance over shortcuts and integrity over instant gratification. The beauty of cultivating this Machiavellian awareness is that it actually enhances your capacity for genuine compassion. When you understand why people behave as they do, you can address root causes rather than symptoms. You can create environments where virtue is rewarded rather than punished. You can design incentives that align self-interest with collective good. If something in this discussion has resonated with you, write "Power of Awareness" in the comments. I'm curious to know how many of you have already discovered this crucial distinction between Machiavelli's actual teachings and his undeserved reputation. The landscape of human behavior reveals fascinating patterns when we observe closely. Have you ever wondered why the same workplace conflicts repeat themselves? Or why certain family dynamics persist for generations? It's because understanding human nature isn't just helpful, it's essential for navigating relationships successfully. When we ignore fundamental aspects of human psychology, we're setting ourselves up for an endless cycle of disappointment. I've seen this play out countless times in my own journey, especially in professional environments where expectations run high, but communication often falls short. The transformation begins when we acknowledge that people operate from their own internal value systems, not ours. Consider how often we project our priorities onto others. If you value punctuality, you might feel personally disrespected when a colleague consistently arrives late. But this interpretation creates a narrative that may have nothing to do with their actual intentions. Perhaps they come from a cultural background where time is viewed more fluidly, or they're juggling responsibilities you're unaware of. The hidden truth is that most interpersonal friction stems from these unspoken assumptions. This revelation changed everything for me. When I stopped expecting everyone to share my values and started approaching relationships with curiosity instead of judgment, doors opened that I never knew existed. People began to trust me with their authentic selves rather than their polished personas. Think about the last time you felt deeply disappointed by someone's actions. Chances are you were measuring their behavior against your own internal ruler. This doesn't mean lowering your standards or accepting mistreatment. Rather, it means recognizing the difference between universal principles, like respect and honesty, and personal preferences that vary widely from person to person. The impact of this mindset shift extends beyond individual relationships. Teams function more effectively when members understand and account for different working styles. Families experience more harmony when parents recognize their children as unique individuals rather than extensions of themselves. Even communities build stronger bonds when they embrace diverse perspectives instead of demanding conformity. Behind the scenes of most successful relationships, you'll find people who have learned this principle. Expectations clarified, our disappointments avoided. When we communicate our needs explicitly while maintaining genuine interest in others' viewpoints, we create space for authentic connection. This understanding becomes particularly crucial during times of stress or conflict. When tensions rise, our tendency to project increases dramatically. We fill in knowledge gaps with assumptions, which can spiral into misunderstandings that damage relationships unnecessarily. By remaining conscious of this tendency, we can interrupt the pattern and choose curiosity instead. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this awareness translates into practical relationship strategies that preserve both connection and personal boundaries. This understanding becomes particularly valuable when navigating challenging personalities or high-stakes situations. If you're resonating with what I'm sharing, write "Human Nature Decoded" in comments. I'm curious to hear about your own experiences with these principles. One eye-opening revelation I've had is recognizing the limits of how much others can truly care about our challenges. It's not that people are callous or indifferent. It's simply human nature. Everyone has their own movie playing in their head where they're the main character. In your life story, others are supporting actors, just as you are in theirs. This perspective shift is incredibly liberating once you embrace it. When I stopped expecting people to care about my problems with the same intensity that I do, I released them from an impossible standard. Your colleagues, friends, even family members, they all have their own priorities, worries, and battles that consume their mental bandwidth. This understanding isn't meant to foster cynicism, but rather to cultivate self-reliance. It's the hidden truth behind genuine independence. When you fully grasp that others' capacity to invest in your circumstances has natural limitations, you take full ownership of your journey. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how your responses to life's challenges actually define you more than the challenges themselves. This might be the most transformative principle I've encountered on my personal development path. Think about it. We all face setbacks, disappointments, and outright failures. These experiences are universal. What separates extraordinary people from the rest isn't an absence of problems. It's how they respond when those problems appear. Your response reveals your character, mindset, and potential in ways that success never can. When things fall apart, do you look for someone to blame? Do you spiral into self-pity? Or do you assess the situation honestly, extract the lesson, and plot a path forward? I've watched people with tremendous talent collapse under the weight of minor setbacks, while others with seemingly modest abilities build remarkable lives through their persistent, thoughtful responses to adversity. This principle fundamentally changed my approach to difficult situations. Rather than focusing on the unfairness of a circumstance, I now ask myself, what does my response to this reveal about me? And is that the person I want to be? The beauty of this mindset shift is that it restores your power. You can't always control what happens to you, but you always control how you respond. And that response shapes your future far more profoundly than whatever initially happened to you. I've seen this play out repeatedly in business, relationships, health challenges, virtually every domain of life. Two people face identical setbacks. One treats it as a defining limitation, while the other views it as valuable data and keeps moving forward. 5 years later, their lives look dramatically different, not because of what happened, but because of how they responded. If you've been nodding along while reading this, type response circumstance in the comments. I'd love to know if this principle resonates with your own experiences. The art of reputation management goes much deeper than just controlling what people see on the surface. It's about mastering your internal landscape as well. When someone insults you, criticizes your work, or tries to diminish your worth, your immediate reaction speaks volumes. That split second where your brain processes the information and decides how to respond, that's where true power lies. I've observed countless interactions where a person's status collapsed in an instant because they couldn't control their emotional response. They lashed out, became defensive, or showed visible hurt. And in that moment, they handed power directly to their challenger. The transformation happens in milliseconds, but its effects can last indefinitely. Instead, consider the quiet strength of measured reactions. When you receive criticism and respond with thoughtful consideration rather than emotional defensiveness, you communicate something profound, that you're secure enough in yourself to evaluate input objectively. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat, quite the opposite. It's about creating space between stimulus and response, where your true power resides. This connects directly to setting boundaries, which might be the most misunderstood element of building respect. Many believe that boundaries meant saying no loudly and forcefully. The hidden truth is that the most effective boundaries are often communicated quietly, consistently, and without drama. They're not declarations, they're decisions about what you will and won't accept, backed by calm, assured action. I remember watching a senior executive handle a challenging situation during a board meeting. A colleague repeatedly interrupted her presentation with borderline disrespectful comments. Rather than arguing or becoming visibly frustrated, she simply paused, looked directly at him, and said, "I'd like to finish my thought before addressing questions." Then she continued exactly where she left off. No anger, no defensiveness, just a clear boundary, effortlessly enforced. The room's dynamics shifted immediately in her favor. These boundaries become invisible force fields, protecting your reputation. They signal to others that while you're open and collaborative, you've carefully considered what behaviors align with your values and which don't. This clarity creates a psychological safety zone around you that paradoxically draws people closer while keeping disrespect at bay. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how your physical presence communicates status cues that either strengthen or undermine everything else you're doing. The way you occupy space, modulate your voice, and even how you breathe can dramatically impact how your messages are received, regardless of the actual words you choose. If any of these ideas about emotional regulation and boundary setting resonated with you, write "boundaries create freedom" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have experienced this paradox firsthand. Navigating relationships without being taken for granted requires a delicate balance. When we establish healthy boundaries, we're not pushing people away. We're actually teaching them how to treat us. I found that many people struggle with this because they fear being seen as difficult or selfish. But here's the transformation that occurs when you start respecting yourself first. Others follow your lead. Think about the oxygen mask principle on airplanes. You need to secure your own before helping others. The same applies to emotional energy. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you're essentially borrowing energy from your future self that you'll have to repay with interest through resentment or burnout. The revelation that changed everything for me was understanding that boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges that allow connections to happen on terms that honor both parties. The most respected people I know aren't available to everyone all the time. Their occasional no makes their yes more meaningful and deliberate. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how setbacks can become our greatest teachers. There's a hidden truth about difficulties that most people miss entirely. Setbacks aren't interruptions in your journey. They're essential parts of it. Every obstacle contains information you need for the path ahead. When I experienced a significant professional failure years ago, my initial instinct was to bury the memory and move on quickly. But that approach robbed me of the wisdom contained in that experience. Instead, I learned to ask better questions. What is this teaching me? What assumptions did I make that weren't accurate? How can this prepare me for future challenges? This mindset shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires deliberate reflection rather than reflexive reaction. The most successful people I've encountered don't have fewer problems. They just have a different relationship with their problems. They've developed the capacity to extract lessons from every experience. What's particularly powerful about this approach is that it transforms your relationship with failure itself. Rather than seeing setbacks as evidence of personal inadequacy, you begin to view them as valuable data points on your learning curve. This perspective gives you a remarkable resilience that goes beyond simple positive thinking. It's about practical wisdom gained through experience. The impact of this approach extends beyond just bouncing back from difficulties. It fundamentally changes how you make decisions because you're no longer operating from fear of failure, but from curiosity about what you might discover along the way. This creates a powerful forward momentum that doesn't depend on perfect conditions or guaranteed outcomes. If you've ever found yourself nodding along to these insights about turning challenges into growth opportunities, write "transforming setbacks" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you are already practicing this powerful approach to life's inevitable difficulties. The incredible thing about detachment is how it naturally builds your confidence. When you're not clutching too tightly to outcomes, you move through the world differently. Your energy shifts. People can sense desperation. It's like an invisible force field that pushes others away. But when you genuinely detach from needing specific results, you paradoxically become more magnetic. I've witnessed this transformation countless times. The person who desperately needs the job usually doesn't get it. The one who approaches dating with an anxious energy tends to remain single. Meanwhile, those who maintain a healthy detachment, who can genuinely walk away if something doesn't align, tend to receive more opportunities. This isn't some mystical secret. It's human psychology in action. Think about your own experiences with people who seemed desperate for your approval versus those who were comfortable in their own skin. Which ones drew you closer? This principle applies universally, from business negotiations to relationships. The journey toward detachment requires inner work. You must build self-worth that exists independently of external validation. When you truly know your value, you don't need constant confirmation from others. This mindset shift creates a foundation of authentic confidence that others can sense immediately. Now, regarding silence and mystery, there's remarkable power here that most people never harness. We live in a world of oversharing, where people broadcast their every thought and movement. But those who strategically withhold information often command more attention and respect. Consider the people you find most intriguing. I bet they don't reveal everything about themselves immediately. They understand that human curiosity is a powerful force. When we don't know everything about someone, our minds naturally work to fill in the blanks, often in favorable ways. This doesn't mean becoming secretive or deceptive. Rather, it's about recognizing that mystery creates interest. The executive who speaks less in meetings but makes each word count. The person at a social gathering who listens more than they talk. The artist who refuses to explain their work, allowing audiences to form their own. Interpretations. Silence itself is a communication tool that most underutilize. In negotiations, the person who can comfortably sit in silence typically gains the advantage. When criticized, those who respond with thoughtful silence rather than defensive reactions often command more respect. These practices require inner discipline, the ability to resist the urge to fill space with words when silence would serve better. I've seen how these principles transform not just personal interactions, but entire career trajectories. Learning to harness the power of detachment while cultivating a certain amount of mystery isn't manipulative. It's understanding human psychology and using it respectfully to build genuine influence. Now I want to go even deeper into how these principles intersect with authenticity and personal boundaries. When correctly applied, but rather allow your true self to shine through more effectively. If you've ever experienced this phenomenon in your own life, where letting go actually brought you what you wanted, write "paradox understood" in the comments. Adopting a bold mindset doesn't mean being reckless. It's about calculated courage that propels you forward when others hesitate. I've noticed that most successful people share this rare ability to step into uncomfortable situations, not because they don't feel fear, but because they've trained themselves to act despite it. They understand that fortune truly does favor the bold, especially in a world where most people play it safe. When I look at my own journey, some of my biggest breakthroughs came precisely when I stepped beyond my comfort zone and initiated conversations or opportunities that seemed intimidating at first. That initial discomfort lasted minutes, but the rewards have lasted years. Remember this truth. Opportunities rarely just appear on your doorstep. You have to create them through deliberate action and sometimes a healthy dose of audacity. This connects deeply with the hidden power of reputation. In a world obsessed with shortcuts and quick fixes, your reputation remains one of the few assets that can't be hacked or artificially manufactured. It's built decision by decision, interaction by interaction. Think of it as your personal brand's foundation. When solid, it allows you to weather storms that would destroy others with weaker reputations. The transformation happens when you realize that your reputation isn't just about avoiding negatives, it's about actively cultivating positives. This is where the concept of an untouchable identity comes into play. When your character is so consistently demonstrated that people inherently trust your word and your work, you gain a form of invisible leverage that money simply cannot buy. I've witnessed the remarkable difference between professionals with similar skills but vastly different reputations. The one with the stellar reputation receives opportunities, partnerships, and second chances that remain completely invisible to the person who neglected this crucial aspect of success. Your reputation travels through networks you don't even know exist. In boardrooms and conversations where you're not present, your name either opens doors or closes them. This revelation changed how I approach every interaction, not from a place of paranoia, but from understanding the ripple effect of consistency and integrity. Now I want to go even deeper into this critical understanding of personal growth. The journey toward building both boldness and reputation requires something that most people overlook entirely, yet it fundamentally shapes everything about how others perceive and respond to you. If any of these principles have hit home for you, write "building my untouchable identity" in the comments. I'd love to know who's taking this seriously. Self-awareness and self-discipline form the unshakable foundation of self-mastery. When you truly understand your emotional reactions, your triggers, and your patterns of thought, you gain an incredible power that most people never access. This journey towards self-knowledge is perhaps the most meaningful transformation you'll ever undertake. Think about it. How often do we react to situations without understanding why? Someone criticizes our work, and we immediately feel defensive or hurt. A friend doesn't respond to our message, and anxiety creeps in. Most people live their entire lives at the mercy of these automatic responses, never questioning the deeper programming behind them. But when you develop genuine self-awareness, you create space between stimulus and response. You observe your emotions without being controlled by them. This isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about understanding them so deeply that they no longer dictate your actions. Self-discipline flows naturally from this awareness. It's not about harsh restrictions or punishing routines. Rather, it's the quiet strength that comes from aligning your daily actions with your deepest values. When you know who you are and what truly matters to you, making the right choices becomes less about willpower and more about integrity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how self-reliance strengthens your confidence in ways few people realize. There's a profound freedom that comes with knowing you can depend on yourself. Think about the most confident people you know. Notice how they rarely seek validation or permission from others. That's the hidden truth of self-reliance. Building self-reliance isn't about isolating yourself from others. It's about developing such a solid internal foundation that external opinions no longer shake you. When you trust your own judgment, when you believe in your ability to handle whatever comes your way, you become virtually untouchable. This journey towards self-reliance begins with small decisions. Start taking full responsibility for your choices rather than blaming circumstances or other people. Begin solving problems on your own before automatically seeking help. Develop skills that make you more independent in areas that matter to you. The impact of this mindset shift is profound. You'll notice that relationships improve because you're engaging from a place of choice rather than need. Work becomes more fulfilling because you're driven by internal standards rather than external approval. And perhaps most importantly, you develop an unshakable core that remains steady even when everything around you is in chaos. Remember that building self-reliance is not an overnight achievement. It's cultivated through countless small decisions, through facing fears rather than avoiding them, through picking yourself up after failures without needing someone else to rescue you. Each time you prove to yourself that you can handle a difficult situation, your confidence grows stronger. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "I'm becoming untouchable." I'm curious how many of you are already on this path of developing true self-reliance. Knowledge comes with a responsibility to apply it. Even the richest understanding of resilience, influence, and emotional intelligence becomes hollow without deliberate practice. It's like having the most sophisticated car in your garage, but never taking it for a drive. The potential remains untapped. Think about the transformations you've experienced in your own life. The most significant growth rarely came from what you read or watched, but from what you did with that information. This is the hidden truth behind any meaningful development. The uncomfortable space between knowing and doing. The journey toward resilience isn't always glamorous. Behind the scenes, it involves facing rejection, making mistakes, and sometimes feeling completely out of your depth. I remember working with a client who understood every concept of emotional regulation intellectually. She could explain the neurochemistry of emotional responses better than most psychologists. Yet in moments of conflict, this knowledge evaporated. The revelation came when she began deliberately practicing tiny interventions in low-stakes situations, gradually building her emotional muscle memory. Your relationship with feedback represents another critical junction. Most people intellectually understand that constructive criticism helps growth, yet emotionally react with defensiveness. This disconnect doesn't mean you lack knowledge. It means you haven't yet built the neural pathways that make resilient responses your default setting. What's particularly fascinating is how this practice-based approach creates a compound effect. Each small victory in managing emotions or influencing outcomes doesn't just solve an immediate problem. It rewires your baseline reactions for future challenges. This is why two people can experience identical setbacks, yet emerge with completely different outcomes and perspectives. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how deliberate practice actually works in developing these crucial skills. The science behind habit formation shows us that consistency matters more than intensity. Small, regular actions that align with your principles gradually redefine your automatic responses to pressure, conflict, and opportunity. Consider the decisive moments in your professional life. The times when you successfully navigated a difficult conversation, maintained composure under pressure, or influenced a resistant team. These weren't accidents or merely products of knowledge. They represented the culmination of hundreds of smaller choices and practices that prepared you for those pivotal moments. If something from this discussion resonates with your experience, write in the comments. Practice makes resilient. I'd love to know what aspects of emotional intelligence you're currently working to strengthen through deliberate practice. Building on this foundation of Machiavellian wisdom, we discover that truly understanding power dynamics requires more than surface-level analysis. When Machiavelli wrote that it's safer to be feared than loved, he wasn't advocating for cruelty. He was acknowledging a fundamental truth about human nature that continues to shape our interactions today. The real transformation comes when you recognize these principles operating in your daily life. That colleague who always manages to get their proposals approved. They've mastered the art of timing their requests when decision-makers are most receptive. The friend whose opinions seem to carry more weight in group settings. They've learned to speak with conviction and back their words with consistent action. Machiavelli's observations reveal that influence doesn't just happen, it's carefully cultivated through a series of deliberate choices and strategic positioning. Behind the scenes of every successful negotiation or leadership triumph lies an understanding of these dynamics that most people never bother to examine. What's particularly fascinating is how these principles transcend cultural and historical boundaries. Whether in Renaissance Italy or today's corporate boardrooms, the fundamental nature of power remains remarkably consistent. The person who understands when to compromise and when to stand firm, when to speak and when to listen, gains an almost invisible advantage in every interaction. Consider the hidden truth that success often comes not to those who follow conventional wisdom about always being nice or just working harder, but to those who understand the actual rules of the game. This isn't about manipulating others. It's about seeing reality clearly without the comforting illusions that often hold people back. The journey toward this kind of clarity isn't always comfortable. We like to believe that merit alone determines outcomes, that good intentions are always recognized, that honesty is always rewarded. Machiavelli challenges us to see the world as it actually operates, not as we wish it would. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how these principles apply specifically to modern contexts. The same insights that helped princes maintain their kingdoms can help you navigate office politics, manage relationships, and achieve your goals with greater efficiency. It's about developing a kind of strategic awareness that most people never cultivate. This awareness becomes particularly powerful when you realize that strength isn't something that appears magically. It develops through consistent practice and intelligent application. Every time you make a decision with clear-eyed awareness of potential consequences, every time you stand firm when necessary rather than yielding to be liked, you're building this capacity. If you're nodding along as I explain these concepts, type strategic clarity in the comments. I'm curious how many of you are already putting these principles into practice in your own lives. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic of personal choice and influence. What we're really talking about is the fundamental shift from being a spectator in your own life to becoming its director. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's cultivated through consistent small decisions that accumulate incredible momentum over time. Consider how many people around you are living on autopilot, responding to life's circumstances rather than consciously creating their desired reality. They wake up to notifications, react to emergencies, and suddenly find years have passed without intentional direction. The hidden truth is that even in the most challenging situations, we retain the power to choose our response. When I first began studying the patterns of highly influential people, I noticed something fascinating. Their external circumstances often weren't particularly special, but their internal dialogue was remarkably different. While others complained about obstacles, they asked, "What opportunity is embedded in this challenge?" This subtle shift in perspective creates a ripple effect that transforms not just your decisions, but your entire journey. Behind the scenes of every significant achievement is this invisible mental framework, the ability to separate what you can control from what you cannot. The ancient Stoics understood this profoundly. Epictetus, who began life as a slave, taught that true freedom comes from recognizing that external events are beyond our control, but our judgments about them belong entirely to us. This understanding isn't just philosophical, it's intensely practical. When faced with setbacks, most people immediately focus on the impact of external circumstances, but those who master personal influence redirect their attention to their response. They ask, "How can I use this situation to strengthen my character? What can I learn that will serve me later?" The revelations come when you begin applying this mindset consistently. You'll notice your language shifting from "I have to" "I choose to." Your relationship with challenges transforms from burden to opportunity. Most importantly, you'll experience the profound difference between reacting to life and responding to it with intention. What's fascinating is how this mindset creates a compound effect. Each decision to take ownership rather than blame circumstances builds upon the previous one, creating a foundation of personal power that becomes increasingly unshakable. Your capacity for influence, both of yourself and others, expands naturally as a result. If you're resonating with these ideas, try this. Choose one area of your life where you've been feeling powerless and identify 3 small actions you can take this week to reclaim your agency in that situation. The decisions themselves matter less than the act of deliberately choosing them. If you've experienced this shift from reacting to responding in your own life, put down "I'm claiming my power" in the comments. Now, let's explore how this ability to choose fundamentally changes how you navigate conflicts and build relationships with others. Taking control of your emotional state isn't just about feeling better, it's about transforming the entire trajectory of your relationships. When partners notice your calm, consistent presence replacing anxiety, it creates a powerful ripple effect that can completely shift the dynamic. This transformation begins with how you interpret your partner's behavior. Instead of seeing withdrawal as rejection, recognize it might be their way of processing emotions. Rather than viewing criticism as an attack on your worth, understand it as their clumsy attempt to express a need. This mental reframing doesn't just change your reactions, it changes the entire emotional field between you. What I've discovered in my journey working with couples is that this shift in perspective is where the real magic happens. When you stop operating from a place of anxious attachment, you create space for authentic connection. Your partner no longer feels the weight of being responsible for your emotional state, which paradoxically makes them more likely to move toward you. Behind the scenes of every relationship transformation I've witnessed, there's been this crucial revelation. Security isn't found in controlling your partner's behavior, but in developing your own emotional sovereignty. This means building a life rich with meaning beyond your relationship, cultivating friendships, pursuing passions, and establishing a strong sense of self. The hidden truth many miss is that independence within a relationship actually creates the conditions for deeper intimacy. When you're no longer desperately seeking validation, you can be present with your partner in a way that feels spacious rather than suffocating. You become capable of giving without depleting yourself and receiving without becoming dependent. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this journey towards secure attachment fundamentally changes not just your relationship, but your entire identity. The decisions you make daily, choosing curiosity over assumption, patience over pressure, and self-responsibility over blame, gradually rewire your nervous system. You begin responding to relationship triggers with intentionality rather than reactivity. What's particularly fascinating is how this internal work creates external shifts that might seem miraculous to those who haven't traveled this path. A partner who once seemed distant may suddenly begin initiating connection. Conversations that used to end in conflict might transform into opportunities for understanding. The relationship becomes a container for growth rather than a source of anxiety. Implementing these principles requires courage, the courage to face your own patterns, to sit with discomfort instead of immediately seeking relief, to risk vulnerability even after being hurt. But this is precisely the path to building the kind of resilient connection that withstands life's inevitable challenges. If, as you're listening, you're recognizing patterns in your own relationship that mirror what I've described, know that awareness is the first step toward change. The journey isn't always linear, and that's completely normal. If what I've shared resonates with your experience, write "I'm ready for secure attachment" in the comments below. One of Machiavelli's most profound insights was that fortune favors the bold, those who take decisive action rather than passively accepting their circumstances. This wisdom extends far beyond the political sphere he wrote about. Think about it, the most successful people you know didn't wait for permission or perfect conditions. They seized opportunities even when uncertain. This brings us to a crucial understanding about personal development that few discuss openly. Your life's trajectory isn't determined by some mystical force or predetermined path. It's shaped by a series of micro-decisions made daily. These small choices compound over time, creating either momentum or stagnation in your journey. When you study Machiavelli's principles closely, you'll notice his emphasis on strategic thinking. He understood that power isn't just about force, it's about intelligent positioning. The same applies to building your ideal life. Rather than charging blindly toward goals, successful individuals analyze the landscape, identify leverage points, and move with purpose. Identify leverage points and move with purpose. Consider this hidden truth. Most people unconsciously operate within self-imposed limitations. They've internalized beliefs about what's possible based on past experiences or social conditioning. Machiavellian wisdom encourages breaking free from these mental prisons by questioning assumptions and recognizing that reality is more malleable than it appears. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how Machiavelli's concept of virtù, personal excellence and capability, serves as the foundation for transformation in any area of life. Unlike what many assume, Machiavelli didn't advocate for ruthlessness as an end in itself. Instead, he recognized that personal power stems from developing exceptional skills and judgment. This perspective reveals something fascinating about achievement. Luck and circumstance matter far less than your ability to recognize and act on opportunities. The person who has cultivated their capabilities can turn even challenging situations into advantages. Meanwhile, those lacking preparation will waste even the most favorable circumstances. Behind the scenes of every overnight success lies years of deliberate preparation. They've been quietly building their skills, expanding their network, and strengthening their mindset. All elements of Machiavellian strategic thinking. When opportunity finally arrives, they appear lucky to outside observers who didn't witness the groundwork. The journey toward your goals requires embracing occasional discomfort. Machiavelli understood that meaningful growth happens at the edge of our comfort zones. This isn't about reckless risk-taking, but about calculated challenges that expand your capabilities. Each time you push through resistance, you're rewiring your brain to handle greater challenges. What's particularly revelatory about applying Machiavellian principles to personal development is how it shifts your perspective on obstacles. Instead of seeing problems as unfortunate setbacks, you begin recognizing them as valuable information, feedback that helps refine your approach. This mental reframing alone can dramatically impact your results. If something I've shared resonates with you, type "Fortune favors the prepared" in the comments. Because ultimately, that's what Machiavelli's blueprint teaches us. The world doesn't simply reward the lucky, it rewards those who have prepared themselves to recognize and seize opportunities when they appear. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the wisdom of Machiavelli extends far beyond mere political strategy. His observations on human nature reveal something profound about our journey toward personal power. When you truly understand these principles, you'll notice a transformation in how people respond to you in everyday situations. Consider this hidden truth. The strongest individuals rarely announce their strength. They don't need to. Their presence speaks volumes before they utter a single word. This is what Machiavelli recognized centuries ago, that true power lies not in domination, but in the perception others have of your capabilities. It's why the quiet, composed person in a meeting often commands more respect than the loudest voice in the room. The decision to cultivate this inner strength creates ripple effects throughout your life. I've witnessed countless scenarios where someone who appeared outwardly ordinary walked into a room and immediately altered its energy. Their secret wasn't some manipulative technique, but rather a deep alignment between their internal confidence and external behavior. Behind the scenes of every successful negotiation, promotion, or relationship breakthrough lies this fundamental principle: power that's forced is no power at all. Real influence comes from the subtle art of balancing assertiveness with restraint, knowing precisely when to step forward and when to create space for others. The remarkable impact of this approach reveals itself in unexpected ways. Friends and family members naturally turn to you for guidance. Colleagues instinctively value your opinion. Even strangers pick up on something different about your presence. This isn't about becoming intimidating, it's about embodying a quiet assurance that makes others feel secure in your company. What fascinates me most about Machiavelli's insights is how they transcend cultural and historical boundaries. Whether in Renaissance Italy or today's digital landscape, the essence of genuine influence remains consistent: authenticity combined with strategic awareness. The person who understands both their own nature and human nature possesses an unshakable foundation. Your personal evolution toward embodying these principles isn't just beneficial for achieving goals, it represents a profound shift in how you experience the world. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming become interesting puzzles to solve. Difficult people become characters to understand rather than obstacles to overcome. This perspective shift is perhaps the most valuable revelation on this path. If you're finding these ideas resonating with something you've felt but couldn't quite articulate, type "power recognized" in the comments below. Now, as we continue exploring these timeless principles, these lessons go beyond mere social skills and touch on the fundamental nature of how people relate to each other, the invisible threads that connect us all in this complex social tapestry are what truly determine our success in any environment. When we talk about embodying these lessons, I'm referring to a complete integration into your personality. It's not about putting on a mask or playing a role. It's about authentically incorporating these principles into who you are. That transformation is what makes these strategies so powerful. Nobody can resist someone who genuinely understands social dynamics at this deep level. The hidden truth many miss is that awareness precedes control. Most people stumble through social interactions on autopilot, reacting instinctively rather than responding intentionally. But once you've developed that keen awareness of social dynamics, the subtle cues, the unspoken expectations, the invisible hierarchies, you gain the ability to navigate any situation with precision. Think about the most socially adept person you know. What makes them different isn't some magical charm, it's their heightened perception of these dynamics. They've learned to read the room, adjust their approach, and build bridges effortlessly. This awareness becomes their superpower. The journey to this level of social fluency isn't always comfortable. It requires honest self-reflection and sometimes painful revelations about how others perceive you. But this discomfort is precisely what makes the growth so valuable. You're developing a skill that most people will never master simply because they're unwilling to endure that temporary discomfort. I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how these principles manifest in real-world scenarios. When you enter a new social environment, whether it's a networking event, a job interview, or even a casual gathering, you bring with you an entire history of social conditioning. Most people allow this conditioning to dictate their behavior unconsciously. But once you become aware of these patterns, you can make deliberate choices about how to present yourself. Consider how differently you might approach a situation when you understand the underlying dynamics. Rather than wondering why certain people command attention or influence, you recognize the specific behaviors and qualities that create that impact. This isn't about manipulation, it's about authentic connection based on a deeper understanding of human nature. The decisions you make in these moments compound over time. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to refine your approach, to learn from both successes and missteps. This is how mastery develops, not through theoretical knowledge alone, but through applied wisdom gained from real experiences. If what I'm sharing resonates with your own observations about social dynamics, write, "I see these patterns everywhere," in the comments. Now, let's explore how these principles play out in specific contexts that most people encounter regularly. In the constantly changing landscape of success, the willingness to be proactive stands as a cornerstone for those who truly excel. Being proactive isn't just about taking initiative, it's about developing a mindset that anticipates changes before they occur. The most successful individuals I've studied don't just wait for opportunities. They position themselves at the intersection where preparation meets chance. Think about how many transformative moments in business history came from someone seeing a shift before others did. Steve Jobs didn't just create products, he anticipated needs people didn't even know they had. This level of proactive thinking requires you to develop what I call opportunity vision, the ability to see possibilities where others see only obstacles. But here's the revelation that changed my perspective entirely. Proactivity without adaptability is like having a map without the ability to change course. The journey toward your goals will inevitably present unexpected challenges and hidden pathways. Your willingness to adapt, to pivot when necessary while maintaining your core direction, determines whether you'll navigate successfully through uncertainty. I remember speaking with a former Fortune 500 executive who told me something profound. The difference between good and great isn't just about making plans. It's about your response when those plans inevitably fall apart. This executive had faced market collapses, technological disruptions, and paradigm shifts that rendered entire business models obsolete overnight. Yet their company thrived because they had built adaptability into their organizational DNA. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how proactivity connects with the concept of protecting your path through decisive action. Clarity without action remains simply a good idea. When you achieve clarity about your direction, you must immediately fortify it through decisive steps that align with your vision. This protection isn't about building walls, it's about creating momentum that makes you resilient against distractions and setbacks. The impact of decisive action extends far beyond the immediate results. Each decision creates ripples that influence future opportunities. I've observed that people who struggle with decision paralysis often find themselves perpetually reacting to circumstances rather than shaping them. Meanwhile, those who make clear, aligned decisions, even imperfect ones, create forward motion that generates its own energy. Consider how this applies to your current situation. Are you waiting for perfect conditions before taking action? Or are you creating conditions through your actions? The distinction represents a fundamental mindset shift that separates those who achieve meaningful success from those who remain in perpetual preparation mode. If you've ever found yourself overthinking decisions while opportunities pass by, you might recognize the hidden truth that indecision is actually a decision itself, the decision to remain static while the world continues changing around you. Breaking free from this pattern requires embracing what I call calibrated risk, the ability to take measured steps forward with incomplete information. What specific situation are you facing right now where you need to be more proactive or adaptable? Write in the comments. I'm ready to be decisively proactive about, and fill in the blank. With the area of your life where this principle needs immediate application, your answer might just be the catalyst for the breakthrough you've been seeking. Integrity isn't just a lofty ideal, it's a practical strategy for achieving your goals and building lasting relationships. When you consistently demonstrate that your words align with your actions, people naturally gravitate toward you. There's something magnetic about a person whose handshake means something. In a world where empty promises are the norm, being someone who delivers creates a powerful contrast that others can't help but notice. I've witnessed this transformation in my own journey. When I first started working on personal development, I would make grand declarations about my plans and goals. I'd tell everyone I was going to write a book, launch a business, or transform my health. But those words often evaporated into nothing. The pattern was clear. I'd get excited, announce my intentions, and then quietly abandon them. When obstacles appeared, the turning point came when I realized the hidden truth. My word had become worthless, even to myself. Each broken promise was eroding my self-trust. How could I expect others to believe in me when I couldn't even believe in my own commitments? This revelation changed everything. I started small. Instead of announcing grand plans, I made modest promises I knew I could keep. When I said I would call someone back, I did. When I committed to a deadline, I met it. These weren't dramatic gestures, but they created ripples of change. People began to notice. "You always do what you say you will," became a common refrain from friends and colleagues. The impact was profound. Opportunities started appearing because people knew I was reliable. A business partner once told me, "I chose you over someone with more experience because I knew you wouldn't leave me hanging." That's the power of integrity. It becomes your silent advocate in rooms you haven't even entered yet. Now, I want to go even deeper into this transformation process. The journey from intention to action isn't just about impressing others. It's about reclaiming your personal power. When your words and actions align, you experience a profound sense of congruence. That internal harmony eliminates the energy drain that comes from living in contradiction with yourself. Think about how much mental and emotional energy is wasted when you're constantly justifying or explaining why you didn't follow through. That energy could be channeled into actually creating results. There's a simplicity and efficiency to living with integrity that most people never experience. The decision to start matching your words with deeds doesn't require special skills or resources, just courage and consistency. It begins with becoming intensely aware of what leaves your mouth. Before making a commitment, ask yourself, am I absolutely certain I will follow through on this? If there's doubt, either don't make the promise or qualify it honestly. This practice builds a foundation for lasting transformation in every area of life. Your relationships deepen because trust flourishes. Your career advances because reliability is rare and valuable. Even your self-image improves because you're living in alignment with your values. If you're nodding along as you hear this, write in the comments, "Integrity is my new standard." This simple declaration can be the first step in your own journey toward living with greater congruence and purpose. If you've stayed with me until this point, you're clearly someone who values substance over empty promises. You're the kind of person who understands that real change happens through consistent action, not just good intentions. I'd love to continue this conversation with you through more content like this. If what we discussed today resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm committed to providing insights that actually translate into real-world results, not just feel-good platitudes. If this message spoke to your journey, drop a comment saying, "Integrity is my new standard." I'm genuinely curious to hear from those who are ready to make this shift. And if you found value in our time together, that like button is a simple way to let me know we're on the same wavelength. I've created another video that explores how to rebuild trust after it's been broken. Because let's be honest, we all stumble sometimes on this integrity journey. Click right here and I'll meet